Interesting, really interesting, like shift as well. You must have not a lot of free time, I imagine, doing writing on the side as well.
I have a busy brain.
Yeah.
So it keeps me happy.
Excellent. Great. TJ, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. I think probably I'll apologize in advance because like Serena, I have a very busy brain. So I have a lot of different jobs that I do. I work for a major bank at the moment. For the past 6 years, I've worked there. And at the moment, I am working on the project management team for designing and building our new head office in the UK, which can be really, really cool. But also we sometimes have to talk about the average speed of lifts, and that's not so cool. I also, I'm a chair of a local queer charity here in Milton Keynes, so I spend a lot of time on that. I am also the network chair at work for the LGBT network. I've recently joined a very mostly inappropriate gaming podcast of gay gamers that is really fun. And then in my spare time, when I'm not doing chores with my wifey, I also narrate audiobooks. So that's all of the hats I'm wearing at the moment.
Do you ever sleep, TJ?
Not as much as I should, according to my Fitbit. That's for damn sure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that introduction. Lola, tell us about you.
I'm more or less a full-time author now, thankfully. That's a kind of recent evolution. Mostly I cheat a little bit because I do a bunch of different types of writing. So the novels are my main jam now, but I still do a bit of journalism, a bit of copywriting. And as of today's post, I am now an ME in television fiction writing. So
congratulations.
So hopefully going to be on your television ruining your favorite shows sometime soon. I'm going to make them gayer and no one can stop me.
We look forward to it.
I can't wait. But yeah, that's my main focus at the moment. Previous career fun has included making every 5-year-old I've ever met jealous by being a train driver. That was a fun few years on the London Underground. And before that, I worked in the theatre, backstage, front of house, any job that was going. And also, I've travelled the world for a couple of years teaching people how to drink Pepsi, which you would not believe is a real job, but trust me, it actually was. So
amazing. Thank you, Lola. Chris, tell us about you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Zett. I'm from Berlin, Germany. I'm a doctor. I specialized 15 years ago in internal medicine and now work full-time on the ICU. Writing is something, reading is something that kind of helps me to relax and get out of the job. Mm-hmm. And writing, weirdly, it's taken me back in because I write medical romance and I just gravitate towards medical characters. I love medical drama on TV or I used to love, now I can't watch it anymore because I know too much, but yeah. So that's about it. I had a lot of jobs during university. I sold organic vegetables on the market. I worked in a graveyard. I worked in a concert hall, putting chairs and tables everywhere and stuff. So yeah, but that's a long time ago, fortunately.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. You must write really technically accurate medical romances, which is, I'm sure, a total gift to everyone who works in the medical profession who yes.
Well, the first draft of my first novel, I had a scene, it read like a manual. You could probably treat a patient after reading it. It was kind of not the point of the novel. I had to rewrite it completely. So it's good and bad parts.
Amazing, but educational. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Last but not least, Robin, tell us about you.
Hi, so my day job, I'm a chief executive of a charity and we work with victims of sexual violence and childhood sexual abuse. I also run a community interest company called Global Wordsmiths with my wife, and we help marginalised communities get their voices out there. And we also work with authors and writers on their craft and to help them get published. I've done all sorts of jobs in the past: painting, decorating, laying slabs, all sorts of sort of things like that. And that's about it.
Amazing.
And I write, you know, every evening as much as I can, and then in the weekends as well.
Fantastic. So another person that doesn't sleep. Thank you so much, Robin. So we've got a really interesting range of professions, some really amazing experience here. So this is going to be a really interesting discussion. I can't wait. So, so feel free to submit your questions to all of these amazing, fascinating people. But I am going to get going first of all, and I'm going to ask the panel. How much, if at all, do you think your kind of professional experience, your professional backgrounds in your day job have influenced your writing or your characters? And I wonder, Lola, could I come to you first?
Yeah, sure. I think if nothing else, my work history has kind of made me flexible. I'd love to be one of those people that has a wonderful writing routine that sits down at the same hours every day and just is so disciplined about doing it. But I'm so used to, hey, do I have a piece of paper and a pen? I don't care if I'm currently hanging off something. I will write down this idea because it's going to go otherwise. And I think that translates to a couple of my characters as well. They're a bit kind of, oh, what the hell, just do it while you can and we'll worry about the consequences later, you know. So there's definitely an element of certainly people who maybe end up in what should be a dream job but find it a little bit not quite perfect. I've got a few of those people kicking about in my books. And I think that's probably my first career track was to go and be a lawyer, and you know, I was absolutely sure that was the right career for me, but it turns out it was just too much Ally McBeal. So I was not actually destined to be a lawyer, and thank God I got out of it, you know. So I have a lot of people reassessing their lives and finding something they didn't know was meant for them.
I think it's really interesting, isn't it, the way kind of the same themes tend to kind of pop up for writers in their book. But I think, you know, may I say, Lola, I think we're all very glad that you're no longer a lawyer and you're, you know, systematically going to be working to make TV gayer instead. That's very exciting for all of us. So
much more fun.
Yay, thank you, Lola. Chris, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I wanted, I suppose your professional experience has really influenced your writing and your background. But tell us a bit more about that. Are your characters anything like you or your colleagues, or?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, every character I write has something of me in it and something of all the people I ever met. So, but I try not to one-on-one copy people and characters into the book. So, but for me, it's really important to write medical fiction that really could happen in a hospital somewhere. So it has, even if some unrealistic stuff happens, I have experienced in my, or seen or heard about people who've done similar things, not the same, but it's kind of the same level. So, and I think what really is a theme in both novels, it's work-life balance. And that's what a lot of people in the medical profession, not only doctors, but everyone is struggling with, because it's hard to say no if you're asked to do some extra shifts because no one else is there. You can just close the hospital for a day because everyone's sick. So we all have to struggle to find some free time and to stay healthy and sane, and that's something I think that where my own experience kind of influences my writing.
Great, thank you, Chris. That's really interesting. Thank you. Robin, I wonder if I can come to you. You've got a real range of experience there in your sort of working life. Has that kind of influenced your writing or your characters at all, do you think?
Not sort of consciously. I mean, I think as a writer, no matter what profession you're in, you tend to people watch and see tics and people's behavior and characteristics, and they kind of sit in your brain until they're drawn forward. Sorry about that. They're drawn forward when you actually need them. But because of the people that I work with in my day job, I tend to try and shut that side of my brain off, so that I don't, to me would be an abuse of the confidentiality. So,
Absolutely.
but in all sorts of other areas, and the professions that I do and have done before, other than at the charity, then yeah, I think it's impossible not to just absorb people for later use.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Robin. And Serena, I'm just going to come to you last for that question, if that's okay, before we move on to the next question.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting question, and like I didn't go through all of my different jobs and experiences, but I definitely feel that of all of my occupations that I've held, teaching helped me the most, because when I taught, depending on the year, like at one point I had 150 students in 1 year, and that was 150 personalities, and dealing with a parent or parents and their own personality. And, you know, I experienced that for over 10 years. And that different socioeconomics, different religions, different attitudes, different backgrounds. And that just like that's just a catalog of people I sometimes pull from, you know, for reference. It was just very, very, very helpful. And then, you know, I've started delving into sort of other sides of people who I've interacted with. Not necessarily jobs I've had, but I've had to be like sort of the middle person for a lot of different things. Especially, I didn't mention this, I was a content writer and a technical writer for a large biopharmaceutical company at one point. And just having that experience, and I was very low level. It was a temporary position, but I was asked to go to these uppity corporate meetings and just seeing, oh, that's how this side works. That's very different than, say, a public school in America. Yeah. So I'm constantly drawing from those experiences and people, but, you know, putting that fictional fairy dust on it.
Yeah.
To sort of suit my plot.
Yeah, what an amazing kind of opportunity to sort of diversify your writing, I suppose, to have the chance to kind of meet people from all different walks of life in all different kind of worlds. And yeah, that must be really sort of enriching in terms of your writing. So.
I think it does, because I do want to make each novel or a little bit different than the others, to have that little extra flair of. So yeah. I do like to think that.
Cool, amazing. Thank you, Serena. So we've had a question from somebody watching, from Evie Bancroft, who asked, do you wish you had started writing earlier and not worked so hard in your other profession? So I'm going to open this up to the panel, so feel free to jump in if you have thoughts on this. Serena, go for it.
Yeah, I was lurking on Facebook, so I saw this coming.
Excellent.
It's really tough because, you know, I've put in, 20 years of basically professional life right now. And, you know, I do wish I would have started writing creatively earlier. I certainly wish I would have taken some creative writing classes in college, because all my classes were either science-based or education-based. However, all of that professional experience has given me something to draw from. Like, I probably wouldn't have had certain ideas for plot or characters had I not have those real experiences to draw from. So I probably wouldn't have redone much in terms of my career.
Yeah. That makes sense. And you're right, I always think I would be just a terribly dull person if I had just been a full-time writer for my entire adult life. But I do wish that I had met more writers earlier. I think for me, you know, that I kind of joined writing groups and kind of connected with other writers. That was when I really started to take my kind of craft seriously. I don't know if anyone else had that kind of experience. But yeah, anyone else kind of got an answer to that? Do you wish you'd started writing earlier? Do you wish you kind of put more time into that than your kind of your day job alter ego? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, I probably wish I had started sharing my writing sooner. I think the only way I did that really until Music and Mirror was through fanfic, and obviously that's very anonymous a lot of the time, and it's wonderful practice, and you learn so much about an audience and writing for them. But I think it was like writing was like my dirty little secret for so long. And I think there's ways it could probably have developed more and flourished a bit sooner if I just let it breathe and just let it be part of my life. But it was very much a private thing I, only did, and nobody was around to know that I was doing it. And, it was not a shameful secret, but it was very hidden. And I think with most things, they do better once you meet your peers and your community, and you start talking to other people who like the same things and want to do it too.
Yeah.
So.
I can really relate to that, Lola. It feels so personal, doesn't it? It feels like such a massive thing to share your writing, share your work, and certainly I wish I had done that earlier, but also completely understand how difficult it is to do that. Thank you, Lola. So got another question from the audience. So Bray Willows asks, what is the best part of being an author? So again, feel free to jump in. Chris, go for it.
Yeah. I think it's the best part of being an author. It's meeting online mostly all those other people who have the same interests, who care for the same kind of worlds, fictional worlds, and it's meeting readers who tell you just if they say just one sentence, I loved your book. It's kind of okay. They connected with something I created, and that's such an amazing gift to know I reached someone, even if it was only for a couple of hours or something. So yeah, that's giving a lot of back to me. So love it.
I can see lots of nodding there, and I think that's just so perfectly put. Thank you, Chris. I agree with absolutely everything you've just said. And Serena, tell us, what's the best part for you about being an author?
I just find it that, especially lately, I enjoy having a mental escape. And not only is this a mental escape, it is, I'm concocting my own world. Yes, these people are fictitious, but after, going through outlines and drafts, they might sound a little on the edge, but like they're real. I get to spend time with my friends today. Again, maybe, a little bit on the edge, but it brings me so much joy. And then to echo what Chris said, it might start off for relatively selfish reasons because I can live in my own world, but then hearing that, well, someone was able to relate to that, or someone recommended my book because, their parents didn't understand, the perspective of, a queer family or something like that. That's just really touching, and it goes to something much deeper. Yeah, that I love.
The best feeling, isn't it, when somebody sort of tells you that they've connected with your work in some way. Something really magical about that. TJ, I'm going to amend that slightly for you, if that's okay, and ask what the best part of being an audiobook narrator is.
I think my favorite part is that I get so many free books and I get to talk to authors. I'm a huge fangirl of Lesfic. I came to it late. I didn't realize it was a genre really until I was, well into my adulthood. And then when I found it, I just started devouring books. And then when I sort of fell into becoming an audiobook narrator, I was working, I was talking to authors, like people whose stuff I'd read, and they were sending me their new stuff, which, as you've said, I know it's a very vulnerable thing to share, like your baby with somebody else. And they were entrusting me to not fuck it up, but, to do a really good job with it. And being able to do that and then get feedback from an author that says, oh, you've nailed it, you've made it better than it even sounded in my own head. That's really cool to me. So, I get to talk to the authors, I get free books, I get to, tell their stories and do it in a way that's sympathetic to their writing. I love the whole thing. I absolutely love it.
Oh, TJ, that's so lovely. And I mean, what an advertisement for being an audiobook narrator, if ever there was one. I mean, I think I want to be one now.
So free stuff.
That's just a really, and I've heard you kind of read people's books as well, and you just, I mean, if you haven't listened to an audiobook narrated by TJ, then you absolutely must. You are missing out. So I mean, you really kind of bring things to life. You know, so I can completely understand that. So amazing. Thank you, TJ. So we have another question from Emily Joy, who asks, where would you find new friends or just people who also enjoy writing during a pandemic from someone who is completely new to this world? So again, I'm going to open this up to the whole panel, so feel free to, if you have ideas for Emily, please jump in.
Yeah. There are quite a few new Facebook groups like Sapphic Writers that have just started. I would say just started, but that to me is probably could be over a year ago. Where writers are coming together and sharing their work. I think they've got like a fanzine, like a magazine type thing that they're producing as well. And I think it's just about reaching out. There are plenty of the Lesfic groups out there, so there's nothing to stop you sort of saying, you know, does anybody want to do a word sprint? Does anybody want to, you know, get together every night just to, or on specific nights to write and egg each other on? And recently, after a writing retreat that Bray and I delivered, we're now doing our own little sort of nano version, the Global's Go-Go Writing Room, where we've got our group of 8 writers that came to the writing retreat, and we have our cameras on and we just sit there and pound out the words. We've got targets, so we're building up towards those targets. But in between, you know, throughout that time, people will just say, oh, does anybody know, you know, about this, or this happened to me today? And it's really nice. So I think finding your little tribe, as one of our writers calls it, it's really important, so that you're not alone, and because it doesn't have to be such a solitary pursuit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robin. That's really great advice. And I guess I'd sort of add to that, Emily. Twitter is a really amazing place to meet other writers. Queer Writing Twitter is a lovely place full of lovely people. I wholeheartedly recommend. There are also kind of a sort of organised organisations like Out on the Page, who are kind of, you know, set up to support writers and some specifically for LGBT writers, and running sort of online events during the pandemic. So, you know, the internet is your friend. You know, we are out there, and I think, as Robin says, most writers are always really up for making new writer friends, so that it's kind of less, you know, it's sort of less of a solitary pursuit, especially at the moment. So, you know, do kind of have an explore, see what's out there, and see what feels like a good fit for you. Any advice from anyone else on that? Anywhere up that you've kind of, Lola?
I just follow up on what you're saying on Twitter as well. It's so easy, I think, with social media to be passive, to kind of sit there and let it all just sort of scroll by you every day. And where Queer Writing Twitter is amazing is there's so many interactive parts to it. So you've got hashtags that you can, you know, participate in daily, where there's a question or a challenge or something that you do. And so quickly, if you start doing those, you get people replying who are doing the same hashtags, or who have been following the same people. And that's when you find, you know, there's so many, particularly independent authors and self-published authors out there as well, who are just getting started. And, you know, that's kind of nice if you're in maybe 1 or 2 books in, and you're kind of like, oh, I feel like I've learned something. Who wants to know? Not the people who've written 6 and 7, they already know loads, but there's always someone coming up who needs that little bit of help or encouragement. So it's nice to be able to say to them, you will get through it, you will get through the editing process, and you will come out the other side. So there's just engage as much as you. It's so easy to just let it all scroll past and not happen to you directly. So reply.
Yeah. That's such great advice. Thank you so much, Lola. And don't be afraid to, you know, I think people are always really up for kind of, making connections, talking to new people, and always really happy to kind of, you know, to have that sort of engagement. So don't be nervous. Cool, thank you. So we have another question. Elena Villalta asks, what is the best thing that has happened to you as an author? So it could be something like special praise from someone, seeing your book in a bookstore, feeling that you're making a living of something you love. Yeah, I'm going to come to all of you. So Chris, I wonder if you could tell me, first of all, what's the best thing for you, the best thing that's happened to you as an author?
Well, apart from making new friends who are really, really friends, so we visit in real life, we send each other birthday presents and stuff. So not just acquaintances. That's a wonderful thing that happened to me, and I got one private message on Twitter from a woman who lives in a country where homosexuality is forbidden. I think she even said death penalty, and she still read my book, and she said she was very touched that people can be so open about it, and we had a conversation, and it was really moving. So I never expected to reach to someone so far away in such a different culture, because, well, I write about a very specific topic, but she still found something to connect with it, and that's one of the best things that happened.
Oh, that is, thanks for sharing that, Chris. That was really, really beautiful. It's a really lovely story. It must have been so touching. So absolutely amazing. I really want to know, we've got such a kind of diverse range of kind of professions here. What are common misconceptions about your day job, or something related to your day job that you see in fiction? And what advice would you give to someone writing? I can see Chris waving there. I'm sure you must have a lot to say on this. What advice would you give to someone writing writing a character who does your job? Or what would you tell them to avoid?
Send it to a medical beta reader, please. So no, I have some pet peeves, and they come up in all kinds of stories, books and TV and movies, even $1 million movies. One of the things is don't shock a flatline. I think it's very far known that you can't shock a flatline, but they still do on TV and in books. If someone is intubated, they can't talk, they can't sigh, they can't scream. It's not possible. And lots of small details only other doctors would notice. But the best thing to avoid is just ask someone who's in the medical profession, can you just read a couple of scenes? They don't have to read the whole book. I do a lot of beta reading for other authors, just a couple of pages. And that's often enough. I point out a few things, and that's it. I don't know, change their writing or anything, but it makes it so much easier for me to read it afterward. And a lot of medical professionals are really happy to help, because we always see the same misconceptions. But I mean, it's probably in every profession, cops or I don't know, train drivers.
But excellent advice. Ask these experts. Thank you, Chris. I'm kind of, Serena, tell us about you. What are the things you see in your writing? What are the things you see in your day job that are kind of misrepresented?
Well, it's not necessarily my day job, because I don't think anybody wants to write a book about grants management. But I've had to go places, and I've seen some things, and actually I had to double check that this was online and it was publicly available, because I don't want to have a breach of confidentiality. So I've basically been, one of the places I work is on a military base that was seen in the movie Outbreak, where they do the BSL-4 things. And something that that really drives me mad that I've seen and I heard, because I was in graduate school during the largest Ebola outbreak, that was approximately 4 years ago. And I remember talking to people, and I'm relatively small, And they're like, these biosafety suits, they're not like fitted. They're like the small women who work in the labs, they had to put socks underneath of it so it fit correctly. They're like, it's dreadfully uncomfortable. Like, you're in it for 8 hours. You're drinking Gatorade, but you can't pee. It's just terribly uncomfortable. And at the same token, I was speaking to people who had gone over to Africa to help with the testing. And they're like, that's not a BSL-4 environment because it doesn't exist. You're doing BSL-4 work, maybe in a biosafety lab, that's what BSL, sorry, in a biosafety level 2 condition. They're like, we had someone on a motorbike with vials of blood just driving up to us, and it was in a cooler, like a regular kind of like cooler you would go camping with. There was like these vials of, so there's like this something that's so, dangerous. But, depending on where you are in the world and your situation, you have to keep that in mind as you're writing about it. The other thing, and I don't want to take up too much time, I'm sorry, but this is stuff that like, I just think is cool, and people get wrong sometimes. The other thing is that I was able to tour the integrated research facility on the base. And that's an area where they do the Ebola Lassa fever testing on animals. And they think something like that is going to be in the basement, like underground. But no, it's on the top floor of a glass building. So in case equipment goes wrong, it can actually be airlifted out by a helicopter.
That's like, really fascinating.
I thought so. That's why I wanted to tell you. Like, someone should write that in the book. And all of that information, again, is available online. That's not something, this is not a government secret. The only reason I was actually allowed in was because they were cleaning the area for the Discovery Channel to do like a film, like do a little feature on it. But the other thing, and the last thing, and I promise I'll stop talking, is that I read a lot, like the fancy scientist, the big shot scientist in the lab doing work. Most of the grunt work in a lab is done by undergraduate students, graduate students, postdocs. The big wigs in a lab aren't going to be the one pipetting late at night, unless they're doing something super illegal, unethical. They're the ones, the top-notch people are writing the grants, are overseeing it. They maybe do like 20% of the work. So just sort of something to keep in mind.
Amazing. Thank you, Serena. We've had some really like specialist kind of expert knowledge going on in this panel. This is really, fantastic. Thank you so much. TJ, I wanted to ask you, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how you got into, like, how you started out in audiobook narrating. Like, how did you get? How did you kind of come down that path? And have you got any advice for someone else be interested in getting into that profession?
For me, it was it Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events? Like, it was a very long journey that started with me being kicked out of the military for being a lesbian, meeting the woman of my dreams, getting married, bouncing around to a few jobs. And then my wife decided she wanted to take up fishing as a hobby. And this is where it gets interesting. I was getting bored on the weekends because American and probably the rest of the world, I think the UK is weird in this. When UK people go fishing, they catch the fish, they take a picture of the fish, and then they put the fish back. Now, I grew up in Mississippi. That's not how we fish, right? We eat the fish. We fry the fish because we're Mississippi. But she was spending all weekend doing that. And I was at home bored out of my mind. And she suggested that I get into audiobooks and just start reading audiobooks. And I was like, don't be daft. No, you can't just do that. Turns out you can. So I went online. I found this website that told me the equipment that I needed. I've always loved reading and reading out loud. My wife's dyslexic, so I read to her quite a bit, especially when we're on journeys, going camping, because we're proper lesbians. yeah, she built me up a studio in the spare room. So I've got my little sound booth with the padded walls where I can talk to myself and read steamy scenes over and over again till I get them right. And yeah, just it's sort of, if you plan to do it, you could probably do it better. I sort of wandered aimlessly in and stuck around. And it's worked for me so far. There's a lot of learning that you have to do. Technical, like, you know, how you edit it, what your sound setup is like, what equipment you use. The editing, oh my God, listening to yourself talk for like 40 hours. That's a whole skill in itself.
Yeah.
But really, it's about the passion of telling the story. And I think that's the part that I love, you know, the most, is that I just get to talk and tell stories. I love talking, in case that hadn't come across. I'll just point that out.
Amazing. Thank you, TJ. So we have got just a couple of minutes left. We've got one more question from Addison. So if I could just ask everyone for a fairly brief answer to this one, if that's okay. Is there another genre that you would like to write but haven't yet? And I wonder, Robin, could I start with you?
Yeah, certainly can. I mean, I've genre hopped anyway, but the one I haven't done yet is fantasy. But I do have a short story that I wrote some time ago that's swirling around at the back of my mind that wants to be turned into a full-length novel about dragons and goddesses.
Nice.
Sort of like 20-foot goddesses kind of thing. So yeah, at some point that will come out, and I'm looking forward to doing that for sure.
That sounds like great fun. I can see lots of interested expressions around the panel, so I'm sure people will really look forward to that when it appears, Robin. Thank you. Lola, how about you? Anything you want to write that you haven't yet?
Well, my wife is a historical fiction novelist, so I'm staying well away from that. That's her area. And I wouldn't intrude. I think probably crime is my other big love, probably what I read the most of. And I've got a lot of time for Scotland, especially has this just rich vein of amazing contemporary crime writers, and they have this wonderful sort of social scene around it as well. So part of me is like, I want to go and play with cool kids. Yeah, I want to get invited to the parties, damn it, when we can have those again. So yeah, I think probably that. And I wouldn't like to say I've spent a lot of my life thinking up gruesome ways to murder people, but there's definitely a couple of ideas in there. So yeah, one day it'd be nice to bust those out.
Excellent. We'll look forward to that too. Thank you, Lola. How about you, Chris? Are you sticking with medical romance, or is there something that you might veer towards one day?
Yeah, I have a plot for historical novel in mind. It's set in the 1920s in Berlin, where life was a big party, and it was one of the most open places for LGBT people just before the 30s came and fascism. So they were celebrating that they survived the First World War, survived the first Spanish flu. So yeah, it's a cool setting, and but I have to do so much research.
That's always the killer.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Serena, how about you? Any new genres you're interested in?
Yeah, after I'm finished with the Dreams trilogy, which is in the sort of sci-fi fantasy genre, I'm gonna actually take one of the new characters into a spin-off thriller series. And within the thriller series, there probably will be like a murder mystery.
Excellent. Oh,
I thought of killing. Well, not killing. I need to stop. I need to stop saying so many words. Just stop. Murder mystery. There you go.
Amazing. You can team up with Lola. Cool. Thank you, Serena. And TJ, finally, anything you want to narrate that you haven't had a chance to narrate yet, genre-wise?
I've done quite a bit of jumping around in terms of genre, which is good because of my short attention span. So, you know, fantasy, zombies, romance, all sorts of sort of contemporary stuff. It'd be cool to do sci-fi. I love sci-fi. There's potential I might be branching out into erotica, but I'll be coming up with a pen name for that, so you'll have to guess. just in case. I don't want to walk into a meeting at work and they're just like playing it in the background. I feel like I'm sex positive, but I got to get stuff done at work. So pin name for that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, TJ. I think that is about all we've got time for today. So I'm going to ask the panelists to check out the Facebook feed and answer any of the questions that we didn't get a chance to come to today. Thank you so much for joining us at home, and thank you so much to all of the panel. It's been such an interesting and insightful discussion. We've had some really great questions from the audience. So once again, Chris Sett, Robin Nix, Serena Bishop, Lola Keeley, TJ Richards. It's so great to have you here this afternoon. You can check out all of the author intro videos on the WSL website, as well as the details and the timings for the rest of today's event and tomorrow's. And next up at 4:30 UK time, we've got readings from Julie Cohen and Emma Wallace, I believe. We look forward to seeing you again later, hopefully. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, Kit.
Thanks.